This virtual meeting will now be called to order to receive Her Worship the Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the full council. It's 6:00 p.m. on Tuesday the 15th December 2020. My name is Councillor Lily Kaufman and I am the Deputy Mayor and Chair of this meeting. In accordance with the regulations made under Section 78 of the Coronavirus Act 2020, this remote meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The audio-visual recording will also be made available on the Council's website and YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. All meeting participants are reminded to speak slowly and clearly in the direction of their device's microphone at all times. A reminder that mobile phones and other electronic devices should be turned off or put on silent mode, and those participating in the meeting should refrain from taking telephone calls. For the purpose of recording of attendance, I can confirm that the following members are present and participating in this remote meeting. Councillors Rosemary Adams, Naveed Alam, Lee Bentley, Bill Bolter, John Boyce, Linda Broadley, Frank Broadley, David Carpenter, Michael Charlesworth, Dean Gamble, Camille Gutterara, Samia Hack, Pretty Joshi, myself, Jeffrey Kaufman, Amandeep, sorry, not Amandeep Kaur, Claire Kozlowski, Helen Lloydell, David Lloydell, Kevin Lloydell, Sharon Morris, Richard Morris, and Ian Ridley. We also have the following officers in attendance: Samuel Ball, Jamie Carr, David Gill, Adrian Thorpe, Stephen Tucker, and finally, we also have the following invited guests in attendance in relation to the exempt agenda, item number 13, regarding the South Wigston Railway Corridor: Yasmin Nally, Craig Taylor, and Mike Rowlandson. For the purposes of the regulations, I can confirm that before this remote meeting went live, all participants confirmed that they can see and/or hear all the other participants. This meeting will be concluded in accordance with the Council's adopted remote meeting procedure rules, a summary of which is attached to tonight's agenda for reference. May I also politely remind all participants that they must not act in a disorderly or disruptive manner or otherwise interfere with the Council's proper conduct of its business. Thank you. We go on to agenda item two. Are there are apologies for absence.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've received apologies this evening from Councillor Robert Eaton and the Mayor, Councillor Linda Eaton.
Thank you. May I, because unfortunately Mayor Councillor Linda Eaton is not able to attend tonight's meeting, may I therefore move that Councillor David Carter deputise as Vice Chair. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Kaufman. So Councillor Kaufman has now seconded that. Can that motion be moved by general affirmation?
There's no hands raised or objections, Chair.
Thank you. We go on to item 3. Are there any declarations of interest?
Your Worship, sorry. I will make a declaration of interest in the exempt item and I will make it at that time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Boyce. Item number 4, minutes of the previous meeting. Unless members have any comments or objections, may the minutes be approved and signed by general affirmation.
No hands or raised or objections, Your Worship.
Thank you. Item 5, action list arising from the previous meeting. There was no action list arising from the previous meeting. Agenda item 6, motions on notice.
None received, Your Worship.
Thank you. Agenda number 7, are there any petitions, deputations and questions?
None received, Your Worship.
Thank you. Agenda number 8, this is Mayor's announcements. Well, obviously, things have had to be done differently this year and safely, of course. Our Mayor, Deputy Mayor, consorts and Councillor Bill Bolter managed to lay wreaths in person to mark Remembrance Sunday, which was videoed and then put online. Can I thank everybody who was involved in videoing and putting such hard work into this to present it on the website. Also, our Mayor with her consort managed to switch on the Wigston Christmas lights in person. The Deputy Mayor, me, hosted a Q&A with local brownies through Zoom. Can I take this opportunity now to wish everybody a good, but most importantly, healthy and happy Christmas, and let's hope for a more normal 2021. Thank you. Agenda item 9, Leader's Statement, Councillor John Boyce.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not going to spend too long talking about the hard decisions we have facing us. Clearly, we've spoken about that on many occasions. This next year is not going to be easy. Nonetheless, now is not the time to talk about that. We'll do that in the new year. Because tonight, I feel that we need to be as positive and try and give as positive end to the year as possible. So I'm going to deal with a few positive issues. By the way, at the end of this evening's meeting, there'll be a short Q&A on COVID and COVID restrictions, simply to ensure that we are aware of where everything's going before the council breaks for Christmas. This afternoon, I attended a Q&A and a webinar. There's a word I never thought I'd utter with the Secretary of State on Brexit, and the effect is that they're assured there'll be an oven-ready set of regulations, all for us to go with on the 31st of December. Unfortunately, Mrs. Court's Christmas is cancelled twice this year, not once, because there's still work to be done. Okay, positive stuff. First things first, the university, this council is going to offer the university the freedom of the borough to mark their 100th anniversary. That will take, there'll be a special meeting in February because we have to do it at a special, which will confer that, and then there'll be events during the year to acknowledge. I think it's important I put on record some thank yous. Normally, of course, these things are done at council meetings with people being present. So this year we are recognising a significant number of people, and interestingly, the number of nominations for various recognitions have increased significantly because it shows that the borough has come together to work hard. So can I recognise the Citizen of the Year, Rob and Ruth Elliott? Can I recognise the Young Citizen of the Year, Tavleen Gill? And this year we have an Unsung Hero Award, which has gone to Pratik and B. Master, who run the convenience store off Carlton Drive, which is interesting because I've also been asked to mention Raj Agrawal, who unfortunately died. Raj was the owner and the man who ran the spa on Queen's Drive. And it's interesting that his own association of small retail units has recognised Raj as being someone who was quite exempt within the community. I understand he was an active member of the Rotary. And just quickly consulting my notes. And he's had a hand in quite a number of things around the borough. The food bank at South Wigston, the first cross-country race at Brox Hill, planting of trees for East Memorial Garden, and he was involved in the first message in a bottle for older people who live on their own, all of which is extremely important, and I think it's only right we recognise him as well. Can I also recognise our customer service team? Earlier this year, we set out for a customer service excellent award, and that was concluded a couple of weeks ago. And I understand, subject to it being ratified by their committee, we have been successful, which, bearing in mind the significant amount of work being done by our customer service and our officers, that's exceptionally good work. So can I pass on my thanks for that? Finally on that, I think we have to recognise that Anne and the whole of the council team have done significantly more work this year on many things that none of us would have hoped that they had to be involved in. And I think overall we have done a significant and superb job. So can I thank them for that? Beyond that, I will take questions because I always do, but it's very difficult to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. But I don't see why we shouldn't, so I do. Thank you.
Your Worship, before the leader takes questions, just for the record, Avril Lennox, Head of Community and Wellbeing, has joined the meeting. The first hand raised is Councillor Kaufman.
Yeah, I just noticed that Councillor Dar is in the attendees list. He's actually at the meeting. I don't know whether the technical people can do something, but he's on the list. But I've seen, but he doesn't seem to be down as a member. So I wonder if somebody could sort that one out. That's all.
Through you, Your Worship, I've now promoted Councillor Dar into an active participant of the meeting. Okay. Next is Councillor Kevin Lloydall.
Thank you, Worship. John, you very kindly mentioned Raj Agrawal, a personal friend of mine, and also a dedicated community person who, one thing that he has done above several others is the Wixton Police Station, where we've now turned that into a garden of to recognise people who've died in service, the police, the fire, and others. Raj was the first person to come forward and said he wants to get involved in that, and he sponsored the trees and some planters. I would recommend anybody to go down there if they want to look at the brand new rainbow seat that's been installed. There's another seat. I think David Carter very kindly came and looked at the production of it. We also had an official opening with, and there's a nice plaque for Raj on one of the planters. We had an official opening with Lord Willie Back and Chief Constable Simon Cole to thank Raj. His family turned up, all his family turned up as well, to recognise the fact that the work that Raj did was beyond reproach. So I just thought I'd mention that, and I'm grateful for all the other words that's been said with regards to Raj. But please go and have a look at it. I think you'll be impressed with it. It's not finished yet, so the volunteers will carry on throughout the year. But thank you for listening.
Thank you very much indeed. I think what it does show is that Raj is an example of one of many people within the borough who have stepped up to the plate in this hard time. So thank you.
Councillor Charlesworth, Your Worship.
Thank you. Yeah, season's greetings to everybody. Yeah, Raj was a nice bloke. He was a big man with a big heart, and he'll be sadly missed. My plea is to the leader, really. The Wigston Post Office, I don't quite know what the situation is at present. I know that Peacocks is scheduled to close down at the end of the year. I really do believe we need a post office in Wigston. I know previously, before Peacocks came, we were without a post office for something like nearly 2 years, I believe. We can't and shouldn't let that happen again. If we can, in our official capacity as a council, implore Royal Mail Post Office to get something sorted out somewhere. There's plenty of vacant premises. I know it's tricky finding somewhere that's reasonably cheap and can be converted, because you need trained staff. You really do. Whether our customer service place is suitable, as we're unlikely to use it again, I don't know. I don't know how long we've got on the lease. But if in our official capacity we can approach Royal Mail and ask them to please do something, and please do something quickly, that would be a good present for the new year.
Thank you. Let's be clear. The council has been aware from the word go of this problem. Certainly, I've had an exchange on many occasions with Alex Ward about the post office, and I can't. The problem we may well have is it's not simply that the post office was within Peacocks, it was actually run by Peacocks, as I understand it, and therefore it's not simply an issue of premises, it's also an issue of the right organisation to take it on and run it. Nonetheless, I can assure you that the officers will continue to work as hard as possible to try and find a solution.
Your Worship, for the record, Court Chief Executive has now joined the meeting, and there's no further hands to indicate questions to the leader.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I believe your microphone's on mute.
Sorry. Thank you for the information about Mrs. Court. We then go on to item 10, Leicester City Local Plan Consultation Report, a report of the planning policy, that the consultation comments set out in Appendix A to this report as the Council's formal response to Leicester City Council's local plan consultation be approved. Who is going to present this report? Is it?
That's myself, Your Worship.
Oh, thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Your Worship. Leicester City Council has recently undertaken a public consultation on its draft local plan. Whilst it does not raise any significant issues or concern for the borough, given the close spatial relationship between the two authorities, our comments identify the need for the Borough Council to be closely involved in any proposals that could have a cross-boundary impact under the duty to cooperate. The comments that have been sent to Leicester City Council are included in the report, and I'll be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Councillor Hack, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to ask a question regarding, I live on Gartrey Road, and I was one of the consultees for the 30 houses that are proposed in the report. Do I have to declare an interest or something? I'm not sure.
Councillor Hack, my view is that you don't, you've been consulted as all of the residents in the borough would have been on the local plan, but Mr. Gill might like to confirm that.
Thank you, Your Worship. The position is that provided that you do not know your colours to the mast, so to speak, then anything that you do or say prior to any determination of that application is not to be regarded as predetermination in accordance with the Localism Act.
Yeah.
Your Worship, there's no further hands raised, although the motion recommendations need to be moved and seconded.
Thank you. Who is going to
I'll
move?
move it.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you. I believe we have to have a virtual vote now. You have to go through every councillor, is that correct? The vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I shall take a recorded style vote. So if I read out your name, if you could just confirm for me. So Councillor Adams. Councillor Adams.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
4.
Councillor Bentley.
4.
Councillor Boyce.
4.
Councillor Bolter.
4.
Councillor Linda Broadley.
4.
Councillor Frank Broadley.
4.
Councillor Carter.
4.
Councillor Charlesworth.
4.
Councillor Dar. Councillor Dar.
Sorry, I was muted. 4.
Thank you. Councillor Gamble.
4.
Councillor Gattaraya.
4, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hack.
I'm going to abstain.
Councillor Joshi.
4.
Councillor Jeffrey Kaufman.
4.
Councillor Lily Kaufman.
4.
Councillor Kozlowski.
4.
Councillor Helen Lloydall.
4.
Councillor David Lloydall.
4.
Councillor Kevin Lloydall.
4.
Councillor Sharon Morris.
4.
Councillor Richard Morris.
4.
And Councillor Ridley. Thank you. I should just tally that up. Thank you, Worship. So that's 22 votes for and 1 abstention.
Thank you. We now go on to agenda number 11, Public Realm Strategy, SPD Public Consultation Draft. That the draft Public Realm Strategy Supplementary Planning Document, as set out at Appendix A, be approved for public consultation beginning the week commencing the 18th of December 2020 for an 8-week period. Mr. Thorpe again.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Public Realm Strategy is an update of the existing Public Realm Strategy SPD that was adopted by the Council in 2012. The revised document takes account of updated local planning policy as set out in the Council's adopted local plan, updated evidence base underpinning the local plan, and the government's new National Design Guide. It has also been broadened out to cover the whole borough rather than just the town centres, which was the focus of the previous document. Internal consultations have already taken place on the document, with all relevant council departments consulted. It is recommended that the document is approved for public consultation, beginning the week commencing the 18th of December for an 8-week period of public consultation. I'll be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Councillor Bolter, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, happy with the document, but one thing I'm concerned about is that when we do the new litter bins in the town centre, there must be of adequate size to take the litter that is accumulated there. At the present time, our litter bins are not big enough in the town centres. We have rubbish spitting out of them at the weekend. Unless we want to go to the added expense of any more emptying the bins, which is very prohibitive, I suggest next time we have bigger bins in the town centres to actually ease this problem of litter. Thank you.
Councillor Geoffrey Kaufman, Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship. Page 88 of the agenda, or 68 of the report, deals with shared pavements as far as I can see. And it was my understanding that since the original report, I think we were told 2012, I thought people's ideas of shared pavement, pedestrians and cars, had changed. Certainly around Oadby, there was talk about it, having it outside the Beecham colleges and schools when they spent money, recently doing it, but they in the end decided that they wouldn't have shared footpaths. I will fight against any shared footpaths with cars and pedestrians in town centres. And I thought that things had changed and that wasn't current thinking. But that's my comment. I'll obviously vote for the reports that go out to public consultation. But when real things come back to be done, I'm not happy with that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Helen Doidle, Your Worship.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yes, Geoffrey Kaufman's quite right. And in the document on page 5131, it does say that there is a government moratorium at the moment on shared spaces because of concerns raised over safety. So do we, first of all, have we got an update, Adrian, on that government moratorium? Because I think Geoffrey Kaufman's quite right. Shared spaces are not working. It would appear that they're not working. And this is the reason why the government's put a stop on it at the moment so that further investigations can be done. Do we have an update? Secondly, I would like to thank Adrian for his report earlier on this evening to say that the gate on Bell Street will be fitted this week. I look forward to that because Bell Street is pedestrianised, but nobody has told the cars and the car owners that it's pedestrianised, and they are continually using it, putting pedestrians at risk. So I do thank you for getting that installed this week, and we shall look forward next week to actually seeing it doing its job. Thank you very much, Adrian.
Your Worship, if I can just come back on the question about shared services. Of course, the supplementary planning document doesn't compel us to have shared services in the borough. It talks about it as an option. And I think I draw your attention to Oadby Town Centre, whereby we've managed to create a scheme that gives the impression of an open area on the corner of Chestnut Avenue and the Parade. But of course, it's still segregated and there's still an area for vehicles and an area for pedestrians. Jamie Carr is with us this evening. I'm not sure if he wants to add anything to my answer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on, I think, to reiterate what Adrian just said, I think that the document sets out sort of principles and objectives, but it doesn't mean that we have to sort of have shared spaces in every development that we have in the borough. And I think it's when we sort of make the decision on where we say we do have shared spaces, it has to be safe, and it has to be appropriate to that location. So really just to make that point. And then in terms of the point about the moratorium, I don't have any sort of update on that. So it is sort of as in the document at the moment.
Perhaps, Your Worship, if I may, if we do get an update on that moratorium, it could be passed on to members, because I think, you know, this is quite an important issue, because it's a safety issue on our public footpaths and our streets. So if the officers do hear anything from the government, if they could please pass that on to us to let us know. Thank you.
Your Worship, just to confirm that if we do hear anything, we'll make sure it's published in the members' bulletin.
Thank you, Mr. Thorpe.
Chair, sorry, Worship, no further hands raised, but the report recommendations do need moved and seconded.
Second.
Thank you. We'll now go to the vote.
Sorry, Your Worship. Councillor Adams?
Yeah, 4.
Councillor Allen?
4.
Councillor Bentley?
4.
Councillor Boyce?
4.
Councillor Bolter?
4.
Councillor Linda Broadley?
4.
Councillor Frank Broadley?
4.
Councillor Carter?
4.
Councillor Charlesworth?
4.
Councillor Dar?
You muted me again. 4.
Councillor Gamble?
4.
Councillor Gattaraya?
Yeah, 4.
Councillor Hack?
4.
Councillor Joshi?
4.
Councillor Jeffrey Kaufman?
4.
Councillor Lily Kaufman?
4.
Councillor Kozlowski?
4.
Councillor Helen Lloydall?
4.
Councillor David Lloydall?
4.
Councillor Kevin Lloydall?
4.
Councillor Sharon Morris?
4.
Councillor Richard Morris?
4.
Councillor Ridley?
4.
So that's unanimous, Your Worship.
Thank you. We now go on to number 12, which I think Mr. Ball is sorting out for me.
Your Worship, this requires a motion to be moved and seconded to exclude the press and public for the 2 remaining agenda items. Would you like to move that motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Second.
Just to clarify, Your Worship, the motion's been moved under section 100A subsection 4 of the Local Government Act that the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting on the grounds that the business to be transacted involves the disclosure of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and in all the circumstances, the public interest in maintaining the exempt item outweighs the public interest in disclosing the exempt information. Can that be moved by general affirmation, members, through you, Your Worship? There's no objections or hand Sorry, Councillor Lloydall, Your Worship.
Sorry, Samuel, I raised my hand in affirmation of moving
Yes, so
the,
did I. So
There's no
I agree with-
objections, Your
No.
Worship, so it can be moved. For the benefit of any members of the press and public observing, the live stream of this meeting will now be stopped.